On this episode, we join Dan Burden for a walking audit in New Orleans. Then we talk with the president of the New Orleans Regional Bicycle Awareness Committee about bicycle education. We drop in on the second New Partners for Smart Growth conference. We head toward the other end of the Mississippi to meet the executive director of the Mississippi River Trail Corporation in St. Paul. We talk with the vice president of the Minneapolis City Council about pedestrians in the Twin Cities. Finally, we go to St. Louis to learn about the national campaign to stop red light running. Stay tuned. We're in New Orleans, Louisiana, talking with Dan Burden, who's director of Walkable Communities. What is Walkable Communities?
Well, it's a small organization, my wife and myself, that is focused on helping communities of all sizes throughout the nation rebuild themselves to become more people-focused, more walkable, and more humane, and a fun place to live, work, shop, play, whatever.
You got a bunch of people out here at 8:30 on a Sunday morning. What was going on?
Right, we had about 20 people who came and joined us from different parts of the country who wanted to see what a walking audit is and to discover a great set of neighborhoods here in New Orleans.
What is a walking audit?
A walking audit is a wonderful way to discover together as a group of people what makes a street, a park, a house, a building, anything work. And it's also probably appropriate to call a walking audit a walking workshop. It's a workshop on feet that is the best way to learn. It's total hands-on. You know, it's watching how a person is crossing the street in a given location and not just talking about it theoretically, or how comfortable a couple is sitting in the park without their shoes on and why. It's a good, secure place, and now that's an indicator that the park is working, that people feel that good that they have no defense of getting up and running away.
How does one learn how to do a walking audit? What are the skills involved?
Okay. A walking audit requires a person to first be a facilitator, to understand how to draw people out, to advertise and get a broad enough people on the walk that you've got the expertise you need. Maybe in a historic neighborhood, there's definitely a historic preservationist, maybe an environmental person, architect, landscape architect, whatever. And then talk about what are the things that matter to the neighborhood, to the downtown, to the waterfront, wherever the walk is occurring. And to ask very open-ended questions and make sure that people are getting their feelings out, and to get away from jargon and big names like levels of service or things that don't matter to a neighborhood, and talking about the things of the heart. And I think that's really how you coordinate and conduct a walking audit.
The walk this morning, what struck your heart? What was special about the neighborhoods we went through?
I think as we walk through the Garden District and Audubon Park today, it was the absolute pageantry of place, timeless, totally timeless, that when the very first architecture of the park was laid out and the homes, the street, they didn't have a lot of money. And they built to a very sensible scale. And to see that working 100 years later so well is the real nugget. But then to see brand new things and adapt to reuse. For example, we saw the bus barn that had obviously a totally different use than it does today. The bus barn converted to a beautiful Whole Foods grocery store, 20,000 square feet, which is a really nice size for a neighborhood. The parking built into the same structure, the new housing going in the back and so on. That was the golden nugget, to see something brand new come into a historic district and work quite well with all of the other things going on the street.
We're in New Orleans talking with Frank Douglas, who's president of the New Orleans Regional Bicycle Awareness Committee. What is the committee?
The committee is a bunch of people who are concerned about safety basically in the New Orleans area, but basically the region now. We started off in New Orleans, but now we're spread out quite a bit. There's a lot of people who well, there's a number of people getting killed in New Orleans on bicycles, and we're trying to do something about it, make the region safer for bicyclists is the primary focus.
And one of your interests has been in bicycle education. What have you been doing with that lately?
Lately, I've been teaching at a middle school bicycle mechanics and bicycle safety at the New Orleans Charter Middle School. It's sort of a progressive school, especially for New Orleans. But for New Orleans, almost anything's progressive. Prior to that, I was teaching the fourth grade level in the region in 6 parishes in New Orleans and around New Orleans. We had bicycle rodeos and such as that, trying to teach the kids how basically to ride on the right side of the street and get along in the traffic.
And when you were in fourth grade, what did that training consist of when you went into a school?
That training consisted of basically having a classroom presentation with the kids, talking about things, talking about what they thought was the right way to do it, showing a safety video that's pretty good, shows them how to ride with the traffic, and if possible, we'd also have a bike rodeo where we'd actually take them out into the playground or the park and have a bicycle exercise where they can learn how to ride on the right without swerving, how to do a correct left turn signal, and really also how to cross the street, which seems simple, but you need to learn how to do those things to survive, shall we say.
And then teaching kids how to ride as a vehicle on the right side with traffic. What mistakes do people tend to make when they're doing that?
The big basic mistake is, first off, most of the kids are trained by adults such as us who have, when we were younger, it was correct to ride against the traffic, and that's what we teach our children. But since there's so much more traffic on the road these days, you have to behave like an automobile because the automobile doesn't look for somebody going the wrong way. So in order to behave like an automobile, you have to ride on the right side of the traffic, and you have to be aware of the traffic behind you. Part of the problem with riding with the traffic to see what's behind you, when you're holding the handlebars and you look back, there's a tendency to swerve as you look back into the traffic. So the primary thing we try to teach is how to look back and see what's behind you without swerving. And the final result of this is to be able to do a correct left turn signal, which means you want to pass in front of traffic, so you do your left turn signal and look back at the same time and make sure that you have eye contact so that traffic knows what you have on your mind.
Back to what you're currently doing in the middle school with bicycle mechanics. What does that involve?
We want to teach kids how to do bike mechanics because New Orleans has a lot of inner city kids, and generally the first thing that goes on a bike for a young kid like that is their brakes. And we feel if we teach safety and they don't have any brakes, it's a problem. So we feel that the first thing you have to do before you get into the safety aspects is to make sure kids have brakes and know how to use them. Make sure they know how to get on their bike, start their bike, and stop their bike with brakes. So we have to teach kids how to maintain their bikes. That's the first thing you need to do, I think, before you get into a safety program. So basically what we're trying to do is teach the kids. We're doing it at the middle school level as far as mechanics are concerned. Hopefully we can get enough middle schools educated where they'll go back and teach the grammar school kids how to do it. But bike mechanics is the first thing you have to do, I think, in any bike program. If the bikes don't work, it's kind of fruitless to try to talk about safety.
How well has this been received by the students and the faculty at the schools?
They've gone crazy over it. They love it. It's a major motivating factor. A lot of these kids have what we might call street problems, street attitudes and such. And the school doesn't tolerate that sort of thing, and they have to adjust their attitudes. And this bicycling program is one of the major motivating factors that they start behaving more in a better social manner. And if they don't behave correctly in a bike program, then they can't go on bike rides with us. They can't do a lot of things, and it's brought a lot of kids who had a lot of problems a long way. The administration of the school thinks highly of it. The kids love the program. I don't want to say it's the most popular program in school, but it sure is pretty popular.
We're in New Orleans, Louisiana, talking with Jake McKenzie, who's on the City Council of the city of Roanoke Park, California. Last time I talked to you was a year ago in San Diego at the first New Partners for Smart Growth Conference. We're here at the second one. Just a quick reminder for our viewers, what is smart growth?
Well, smart growth is a whole system of how one would go about designing our communities, if they are new communities, looking at making our communities both livable and walkable and sustainable. But it's not just new communities, it's also looking at older communities, and as we maybe do infill development in our older communities, making sure that, again, we're looking at these sort of characteristics, if you will, of being able to walk, of being able to have a great quality of life, and not be in an automobile-dependent environment.
What's new this year?
What's new this year is that it's not new this year. It's more that it's an expansion of what happened in the last conference, and that was a much greater emphasis on the benefits of smart growth for public health. The benefits of getting our kids on their bikes, walking, of getting the adults, young and old, thinking of our physical condition and having design of our communities that helps us exercise and recreate and be out there. The second thing that I think we're continuing to emphasize is it's not just environmental protection, it's not just preserving open space by smart growth and density around transportation nodes, it's also public safety. The fact that you have eyes on the street, people sitting on their porches, walking in their streets, out in the parks with the kids. This makes for a safer community. People feel less threatened. So I think both the public safety and the public health aspects of our Smart Growth conferences have really brought this to people's attention from all over the country.
And it sounds like you're going well beyond just transportation and land use issues. Does that mean you're bringing together other people?
Well, I think that was the great thing about the first conference in San Diego, and we've seen it again here in New Orleans, and that is these people who didn't used to talk to one another. We have what we've all been talking about at this conference, and maybe that was the theme of diversity, of getting people who are developers, or getting people who are working in social service, who are concerned with the older people in our community, the younger people. We had a great youth group again here this year, making sure that young people are involved in community decisions, getting the regulators, getting the nonprofits, getting the elected officials, the planning commissioners, the whole gamut of our diverse society, and not just male, but males and females, not just Caucasians, but the whole diversity that America is becoming.
You're in the early stages of planning for next year's conference. There's still going to be more to talk about next year?
I think it's the continuing dialogue. I think it's the life as a journey. I think it's as smart growth has become in some ways almost over-popularized, almost a cliche, but it still beats the hell out of dumb growth. And so I think next year when we meet for the third time, we'll continue our dialogue, we'll continue to have diversity, and we'll continue to work towards this huge problem that faces us in the 21st century, and that is how are we going to house the increasing population in these United States in a manner that's both sustainable and pleasant, hedonistic, as Andres Duany said, giving pleasure to all of us, this pursuit of happiness that we all do and we all cherish in this country. And I think that's the challenge for the 21st century, and that's why we'll continue to meet.
We're in St. Paul, Minnesota, talking with Patrick Nunnally, who's Executive Director of the Mississippi River Trail Corporation. What is the Mississippi River Trail?
Well, the Mississippi River Trail is a network of bikeable and other non-motorized use routes that will eventually stretch from the headwaters of the Mississippi up here in Minnesota all the way to the Gulf, some 2,500 miles.
Where'd the idea come from?
Well, the idea came in the early 90s as a result of the Lower Delta Regional Development Commission. The Mississippi Delta has some real poverty and some economic development issues. The commission recommended as one of its several recommendations that a bike trail along the river would be a really powerful economic development tool for communities. It would attract tourists from all over the world. It would be a community resource. It would just be something that really provides a great deal of impact for those communities down there.
What does the trail look like?
Well, the trail in many of its places is a paved shoulder or a bike lane on a low-volume country road. And so in many cases, bicyclists are sharing the road or the road facility, the road right-of-way, with cars and in some cases some trucks as well. Up here in the upper part of the river, where we've been working on this project for the last couple of years, planners are envisioning that in many cases it will be on separated rail trail conversions or on levees. It's on levees also down in the New Orleans area.
So how much of it is done? Could I do the length of the Mississippi on a bike now?
You could do the length of the Mississippi on a bike right now, and many people do that every year. In the Mississippi River Trail is signed with a unique identifying road sign south of Hannibal, Missouri. So we have better than half of it largely signed. North of the river, our studies are telling us that we're probably 60% ready to go right now. The signs aren't up, but you could bike it and be on a very safe, a very good quality roadway for most of the way.
What has the impact been in the ports that are complete where people are biking it today?
Well, we haven't had the chance yet to measure it because it's such a new facility, but we're seeing more bicyclists in places like Vicksburg, Mississippi and Natchez, Mississippi. We're also seeing a real growth in the awareness of bicycles and the need to plan for bicycles in cities like New Orleans. And New Orleans has one of the great urban fabrics of this country, and we're working with the Regional Planning Commission in New Orleans to see about how to get a bikeway through the city from where the MRT comes in west of town through the city and then out the other side. And that's something that's really exciting, is to be able in the next year or so probably to be able to provide a bikeway through the city of New Orleans.
And what's the role of the corporation in working with different groups to actually get the trail done and the local connections made? How does that work?
We have a couple of things we do. Really, we build no trail, and we put no shoulders on highway rights-of-way. That's the work of the state departments of transportation, state departments of natural resources, and the county highway people and things like that. What we do is we work with those folks to understand how the facility can be something that really helps everybody. It's a win-win for the communities, for the states, and for us as well, and for cyclists, and in some cases for pedestrians. Here in St. Paul, you'll see as many pedestrians on the MRT as you do cyclists. So we provide that kind of coordination. We're a resource for them in terms of information and mapping, photographs, things of that nature. By saying that they're hooking into this nationwide endeavor, that's something that really sort of gives them some encouragement and motivation for their own work in their own local community. And then we'll be working with them in marketing and promotion of the MRT, which will be marketing and promotion of their local area as well.
That's Robert takes city.
We're in Minneapolis, Minnesota, talking with Robert Lilligren, who's Vice President of the City Council. What's the role of the City Council on setting the policies that affect pedestrians?
The role of the City Council is that we set the ordinances that affect the sidewalks, the streets. We have skyways in Minneapolis because we are cold weather city, bikeways. And so we set the ordinances for building them, developing them, and maintaining them. So we're very active. Actually, it's one of our core services that we provide.
And you have something called a pedestrian overlay zone.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's a pedestrian overlay district, and there are areas where certain zoning requirements have been laid over the existing zoning requirements by ordinance. So any new development needs to be done in compliance with these ordinances, and it's things like limits the number of driveways that you can have on a sidewalk. It eliminates the ability to do drive-through businesses, let's say. It dictates the width of the sidewalks. It can also influence things like lighting and other street furniture as well.
And why would something like that be important to pedestrians? What difference does a lot of driveways make?
Well, for one thing, it's safety. The number of driveways that you have to walk through. The more you increase the number of driveways, the more you increase your opportunity for getting struck by a vehicle, for one thing. But also just in ease of walking, that there aren't different levels. And it is also a consideration for people who use wheelchairs as well. So they're not going through from level to level. And again, just eliminating the number of opportunities for pedestrians to meet cars enhances the pedestrian and the walking experience. It's been especially useful around, say, universities or schools.
And you mentioned people with disabilities. How has Minneapolis been doing with the Americans with Disabilities Act in your public environment?
Sure, Minneapolis has been very aggressive about meeting the ADA requirements throughout the city. We had a massive initiative to put curb cuts on every intersection, and I don't know if every intersection in Minneapolis has curb cuts yet. That's the sloping area so that someone using a wheelchair can easily access the sidewalk. But if not everyone, just about everyone. Minneapolis is a model, I think, for meeting ADA compliance at a street level.
And on the regional level, pedestrian and bicycle facilities hooking up with your twin city, St. Paul.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? How much coordination do you have to have between the cities?
Mm-hmm. A lot of coordination. It's huge. Minneapolis is at the center of a very large metropolitan area, and regional planning, especially in transportation systems, is critical here. I mean, in other systems as well, obviously water, sewage, things like that. But in transportation, pedestrian, bicycle, light rail, it's all a regional plan.
What sort of organization exists to create that regional plan, and how does the City Council work with that organization?
Sure, the organization that exists here in the Twin Cities is called the Met Council, or the Metropolitan Council, and it's an appointed body that includes local governmental jurisdictions from the participating counties, the larger municipalities, and other appointees. And it directs, one way the City Council interacts with that, or that I do personally, is there is a Transportation Advisory Board. It's a subcommittee of the Metropolitan Council, which helps direct federal funding to transportation projects. And so as we set the criteria for the next round of federal funding, it's important that we include things like pedestrian systems, as well as bicycle systems and other modes, light rail, other modes other than the single car occupant vehicle.
What sort of regional facilities are there for pedestrians and bicycles once you get beyond your immediate neighborhood?
Sure. One thing that we have in Minneapolis and in the Twin Cities area is an incredibly well-developed bicycle and pedestrian system. As a matter of fact, there's a piece of it just about a half a block from here called the Midtown Greenway, and it is a two-way bicycle paved bicycle path with an adjacent pedestrian path, and this goes right through the center of the city, right through the 16 different communities. And then on either end, it connects with systems that extend way out into the western suburbs, and you can also connect into the the statewide bicycle trail system. And then to the east, it'll eventually connect to St. Paul's and hook into their bicycle and pedestrian system.
We're in St. Louis talking with Leslie Blakey, who's Executive Director of the National Campaign to Stop Red Light Running. What is the campaign?
The campaign is a national umbrella effort to help reduce the incidence of red light running in the United States and the fatalities and injuries that it causes. We have a team of leaders that serves on our advisory board who come from all areas of law enforcement, transportation engineering, emergency medicine, and traffic safety to advise us on our efforts in trying to make people more aware of the problem of red light running and some of the solutions to that problem.
How big is the problem?
The problem's pretty big. There are actually about 200,000 crashes each year, 1,100 deaths, and more than 150,000 injuries. And many of those injuries, one of the things that people don't realize is that red light running tends to be the kind of side angle crash that produces very severe injuries, frequently spinal cord and brain injuries, internal organs that are lifelong debilitating injuries that affect not just the victims themselves, but their families, their employers, many ripple effects through the society from this problem.
You issued a report today.
We did. The Stop on Red, Safe on Green, this is a guide to red light camera programs that is designed to help community leaders, people that may be interested in law enforcement or in our leadership in communities, and citizen activists also, understand red light photo enforcement, how it works, whether it might be appropriate in their communities, help them understand the steps to get started on a program if they're interested in that, and undertake a really good, thoughtful approach to program management so that they can have a sound red light photo enforcement program in their communities.
In communities that have red light enforcement, how successful has it been?
It's been very successful. One of the things about photo enforcement is that it goes along with sound engineering. That means having really good sight lines to the intersection signals and other sorts of engineering steps that you have to make sure are in place before putting in a photo enforcement program. But even after you've done all the engineering measures you can do, the photo enforcement drastically cuts down on intersection crashes and violations. And then the other part of that is education for the public so that they understand why it's important and they understand that the cameras are there to protect them and that it makes their communities safer. In fact, in communities where photo enforcement has been put into place, there have been reductions of up to 87% in violations, and frequently crashes have gone down by as much as 50%.
What sort of misunderstandings are there about photo enforcement that might make some people reluctant to have it?
Well, one of the things that comes up frequently is people say, well, that's a violation of my privacy. You're taking pictures of me, and I don't know how those will be used. First of all, the only time that cameras take a picture in all the forms of photo enforcement that we have around the country is when the car is in violation. The camera is only triggered when a car runs a red light. This is different from surveillance cameras that are in operation throughout our society in banks and teller machines, at convenience stores, and so forth. You have cameras that are running continuously. Even in traffic safety, to control the flow of traffic, for example, you often have video cameras that are set up all around an area. But photo enforcement for red light cameras only triggers when the car runs the red light. Then it takes a picture of the car and its license plate. That means that it's really not a violation of privacy in the sense that the driver's identity is protected. And in fact, in places where the camera has been in use, we have had people respond to us that really it's less invasive than a traffic stop where a policeman actually comes up to your window and can see the entire interior of your car. So I think that the privacy issue is really not a valid one. There have been some concerns about how will the data be used and that sort of thing, but most of the time when legislation is put through on photo enforcement, they're very careful to put firewalls and to build in the protections that are needed to keep the data private and to only use it for this purpose, which is an important safety purpose.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.